So, we've just had Apple's new Far Out event, and we've just seen the brand new iPhone 14 models line up. We do have the iPhone 14 Pro Max, but we also have the brand new iPhone 14 Plus. So, what I want to do for you today is a comparison of the iPhone 14 Pro Max and the iPhone 14 Plus. The iPhone 14 Plus has features like the A15 chipset, what's exactly the same ones in the iPhone 13 Pro models. But also, on the iPhone 14 Pro Max, we do have a triple camera setup, and there's lots of other things to compare. So today, what I'm going to do for you is I'm going to do an iPhone 14 Plus versus the iPhone 14 Pro Max review of specs comparison. And without further ado, let's begin. So then, as you can see here, we have the iPhone 14 Pro Max on the left side, and we also have the new iPhone 14 Plus on the right side, and that's going to be the same during all of this comparison. So let's begin with it then. So we've got the display type first of all. So both of these phones have an OLED display, and this OLED display, we've had OLEDs now since the iPhone 10, that's when they were first introduced, but every single model of the iPhone has had OLED, apart from the SE model, since the iPhone 12, so there's no difference here except for the OLED on the iPhone 14 Pro Max is a little bit more brighter, especially like in daylight. You can get up to 2000 nits of brightness on this compared to the normal iPhone 14 Plus. Then for the actual screen size, they're actually identical. They're exactly the same. The actual same body is very, very similar. So it's a 6.7 inch display for both of these models. There's no difference here. The only main difference is obviously you do get that dynamic island, and you also get the notch on the 14 Plus. So that's the way how you actually see your display. You either get the island or you get the notch. So you get to choose which one you prefer to have. The actual screen resolution though, the actual screen is actually a 16:9 for both of these iPhones, and the resolution you get with that is 2278 by 1284, and that's identical for both the models. And that basically translates to, in pixels per inch, 458 pixels per inch, or 458 ppi for both of the models. Again, exactly the same. There's no difference here. The display refresh rate though, this is where things do change. So with the iPhone 14 Plus, you get the standard 60Hz display, what we've had for a long time now. But with the iPhone 14 Pro Max, you actually get a 120Hz ProMotion display, and that can go all the way down to 1Hz and all the way up to 120Hz. And when it's down at 1Hz, you can actually use that always on display that's come out for the iPhone 14 Pro models, including the Pro Max, whereas the iPhone 14 Plus doesn't have this capability. For display protection though, they both do have ceramic shield, what is very similar to the Gorilla Glass that's out there right now, like on Android phones. So it's very, very good and very, very strong. But then we move on to the processor and the CPU, and this is where things do change a fair bit here. We do have the A16 Bionic and we have the A15 Bionic. So the iPhone 14 Plus has the A15 Bionic, and this, funny enough, is the exact same chipset that was in the iPhone 13 Pro and also the iPhone 13 Pro Max last year. But the iPhone 14 Pro Max and the 14 Pro this year has a brand new A16 Bionic chipset inside it, what's even more efficient than what we got with the A15. It is a little bit more faster as well, not too much in the multi-core, but in single core it definitely is. But the main thing is to do with efficiency. It is far, far more efficient in the A16. But the cores on both these are built up of a 5-core GPU, and then for the CPU it is a 4-core efficiency cores and 2-core performance cores. However, one other thing that has also changed is the RAM. Both of these iPhones do have the same amount of RAM inside them, what is 6GB for both the models. However, with the iPhone 14 Plus, you do get LPDDR4X RAM, what's the same sort of RAM that's been used in the last couple of generations of the iPhone with the previous chipsets. But with the iPhone 14 Pro Max, it's actually using LPDDR5 RAM, what is a bit more faster to access. So really putting stuff into your temporal memory, what you have inside your phone, the iPhone 14 Pro Max will be a little bit more quicker at doing that. Then for storage amounts, there is a difference here as well. So with the iPhone 14 Pro Max, it starts at 128GB and goes all the way up to 1TB, whereas the iPhone 14 Plus starts at 128GB but only goes up to 512GB. There is no 1TB option. So if you do want even more storage, you will need to go for a Pro or a Pro Max model. Then we actually have the operating system inside, and both of these phones can run iOS 16, and they both get things like the satellite connectivity for emergency calls and text. They also get car crash detection, but the iPhone 14 Pro Max does actually get one or two extra features with that new dynamic island instead of having the notch now. There's a few extra features inside that, but essentially apart from this, they are very, very similar in how they run iOS 16. Then we have the actual battery size, and really I'm actually going to say this, both the phones have the exactly same battery inside them. The iPhone 14 Plus does have 2 milliamps more, what is, I can't even imagine, it's about 0.1% more battery than the iPhone 14 Pro Max. So really, if you ran both of these phones up to 10 hours, maybe the 14 Plus would do 10 hours, but the iPhone 14 Pro Max would probably do 9 hours, 59 minutes, and say 30 seconds. It'd be like 30 seconds behind it. There's nothing in it whatsoever. But then having said that, it does have the Pro Motion display, the iPhone 14 Pro Max. So really, again, if the actual refresh rate is lower than say 60 Hertz, what the iPhone 14 Plus does normally run at, what you're doing your apps or whatever you're doing on your phone, then technically speaking, the iPhone 14 Pro Max battery would last longer. So really, there's quite a lot of different other things. You've also got to factor in the A16 chipset as well, what is also more efficient than the iPhone's 14 Plus A15. So there's that side of it too. It is really basically, these phones are neck and neck in battery sort of capability. Then after this, we have the wired and wireless charging, and both the phones do have 20 watts cabled connection by Lightning, and also they have the MagSafe connectivity, what is 15 watts, what's exactly the same that we got since the iPhone 12. Then after this, the actual weight of the phones, the iPhone 14 Pro Max comes in at 240 grams, whereas the iPhone 14 Plus is a little lighter at 203 grams. So the 14 Pro Max is a little bit more understandable because it does have that extra sensor, so it's going to be a little bit more heavier with that camera lens. Then water resistance, both of these phones are identical. They're IP68, and most iPhones have been IP68 for some years now, and this basically allows you that if you did drop your phone into clear water, survive up to 30 minutes, up to 6 meters in depth of water. So they're both identical in this as well. After this, we do actually have the ports on the iPhones, so both of the phones actually have a Lightning connection this year, and it's probably going to be the last time we're actually going to see Lightning connection on iPhone. Next year, we're most likely going to see USB-C, but there is no headphone jack, and there hasn't been one since the iPhone 7, so it's been a bit of a while now since we've had that. Then they have stereo speakers. The stereo speakers on both of these phones are basically identical. There's no difference there, and they do give out a lot of sound and good quality sound. Then we have 5G capability, and both these iPhones have had an upgrade to 5G capability this year. They've got a new 10 gigabit modem inside them, provided by Snapdragon, so as long as the cellular towers can support it, and as long as you've got a good range with that, you should be able to get up to 10 gigabytes of speeds if you can connect to them. Then we've got Bluetooth capability. Both the iPhones got an upgrade this year from Bluetooth 5.0. We're now on Bluetooth 5.3. And then for cameras, this is where things do change quite a bit between both the phones, and you can even see this by the look of the pictures. So starting with the iPhone 14 Plus, we have a 12 megapixel wide camera, a 12 megapixel ultra wide camera, and they can record up to 4K video. Both of these lenses and sensors do actually capture more light into these sensors since the iPhone 13, so that's really good to hear that. So the quality is better, and also the sensors have been readjusted to basically capture pictures a bit more smarter this year. But the iPhone 14 Pro Max is the crown jewel of photography for iPhones. So we have a brand new 48 megapixel wide camera, and it also has pixel binning built into it, so if you do have to take some low light photos, your photos will actually come out quite bright still. And then also we have a 12 megapixel ultra wide and a 12 megapixel telephoto as well, and these have been upgraded too. They've been modified to let in even more light. They can record up to 4K video, and it also does have that LiDAR sensor that was introduced with the iPhone 12 Pro models. But for the actual camera features, the iPhone 14 Pro Max this time has quad tone, 15 times digital zoom. It also has a 2 times and 3 times optical zoom this time, and you have the standard 1 times on the sort of wide camera, and then on the ultra wide you also have that 0.5, so sort of 4 sort of built-in zoom capabilities. You've got night mode, deep fusion, smart HDR3, and then you've also got Apple Pro RAW, Apple Pro Res, what's exclusive to the Pro models of the iPhones, and you also this time get 30 frames per second cinematic. Whereas the iPhone 14 Plus, you do get quad tone, but you only get up to a 5 times digital zoom inside it. You do get night mode, deep fusion, smart HDR3, and you also get that new 30 times frames per second cinematic, but you won't get any other extra features, and you can't use features like Apple Pro RAW or Apple Pro Res inside it. But switching the phones around to the selfie camera, both of these phones have an upgrade this year. We've actually got an upgrade to a 12 megapixel. It's a new one with a 1.9 aperture, sensor and lens, and you can record up to 4K video. And for the first time ever on an iPhone on the front camera, you've also got autofocus on both of these phones. So really the selfie camera is identical for both of these new iPhone 14s. For price wise though, there is a difference here. Even though both the phones are exactly the same size in their 6.7 inch display, the iPhone 14 Pro Max starts at $1,099 but I do know in other countries it is more than that, and the same with the iPhone 14 Plus. It's $899 in America, but in other countries it is starting at a little bit more, so do check out how much it is in your country. But the main difference is both these models do have around the same sort of gap, as you can see here, what is around about $200 between them, and it's going to be that in all your other countries' sort of currencies, it's going to be about the same sort of difference. But you are getting a bit more of a better phone with the 14 Pro Max over the 14 Plus, and this is on the standard base 128GB model. For colours though wise, with the 14 Pro Max you get 4 colours, and the 14 Plus you get 5 colours. On the 14 Pro Max we've got silver, space black, gold, and that brand new deep purple that you can see here. And then on the iPhone 14 Plus we've got midnight, starlight, product red, blue, and we've also got the new purple, what you can see here too. So with that in mind, what iPhone model will you be buying? So as you can see, there are lots of differences. Just like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, we do have that A15 chipset. What's inside the iPhone 14 Plus, the same we got inside of the iPhone 13 Pro Max that we got here. But the iPhone 14 Pro Max does have that dynamic island, for example, has a better ProMotion display, and also has a triple camera setup, including that 48 megapixel sensor inside. So like I said, I think to be honest, they are very, very similar maybe in size, but what you're going to actually use the iPhone for, it does make a big difference, and especially in that cost as well. But I'd love to know in the comments below of what iPhone you are possibly going to be buying this year, if you're going to be getting a new one, or maybe in the future what's going to be your next model. Let me know in the comments below. And at the same time guys, it's time to wrap up this video, so if you have enjoyed watching it, please do press the like button, and also at the same time if you want to hear the latest reviews and comparisons like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button and also hit that notification bell. Until next time guys, I will see you really soon. Bye bye.